Okay, it's Hebrew 2:14, and it means a depository, a armory, or cellar. And again, that's Hebrew 2:14 in your Strongs, and it means a depository, armory, or cellar. And as I'm reading these definitions, just like ask yourself, how does it relate to today's day and time? Because I know a lot of people, even myself, believe that once that, oh well, he was talking back then. He was talking about a physical thing, but now if we give our tithes, he's going to take it to a spiritual thing. So your spiritual storehouse, bring it to the church or whatnot. And the windows of heaven. How many windows are in heaven? It's talking spiritual. But we're going to see that everything is physical, and it can be proven with scripture. So we have storehouse. That means a depository, armory, or cellar. All right. We have window. That's Hebrew 6:99. And it means an opening for water or water. Okay. Again, window. It's Hebrew 6:99, and it means an opening for water. The next one is heaven. It's Hebrew 8064 or 8064. Hebrew 8064. And it means the sky.
Say it again.
It means it's Hebrew 8064. The word heaven is 8064.
The sky.
And it means the sky. Okay. Now, so you have it, if you have a window of heaven, that's the definitions put together means an opening for water in the sky. Does anybody want to take a guess what that is?
Rain.
Exactly. Can that be proven?
So that you can come and bring these.
Yeah, we're going to get there. So can we find an example of another version or another time they said referred to a window of heaven? Is that in scripture? Do y'all think?
Was it the rain from the 40-day flood of Noah?
Good. You on point. Let's go to Genesis 7:7 and see what this window of heaven is. But that what?
No.
You all right?
No. Great.
All right. You want? And I read this. Is everybody there? You there, Dick?
Yeah.
It's Genesis.
Genesis
Yeah, the first book.
7:7.
Yeah. No, 7:11.
7:11.
Yeah. Is after the contents and before Exodus. I know I'm playing with you.
I know you
All right. It says, Genesis 7, chapter 7, verse 11 and 12. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great broken up, and the windows of heaven were open, and the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Simple. The windows of heaven were open, and the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Okay? I know this song, like the windows of heaven are open, and the fire is burning tonight. Right? Okay. Yeah, it wasn't no fire from the windows of heaven. It was nothing but water or water. So if we go back to Malachi, the 3rd chapter, where is it found? Verse 10. We have the understanding what tithes can be. It can be produce, livestock, or seed. So it says, bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, or to the armory or cellar, that there may be meat in my house. So now we understand. What is that meat that he's talking about?
Water.
No.
I mean, the produce and stuff.
Exactly. Exactly. Physical meat that you can eat. And prove me now, herewith saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open unto you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. So, what is the window of heaven and pouring you out a blessing? What is he talking about?
What?
Exactly. Exactly. He's talking about physical rain. Nothing spiritual, but he's talking about physical rain from the windows of heaven, which is the clouds in the sky, pouring you out your blessing. That blessing is that it's not drought. That I'm going to send rain to water the crop so that the process can repeat itself. And he said that, and that there shall not be room enough to receive it. So he's not going to give you too much water where your crops get drowned, but it's going to be enough that if you have it, you're going to have enough to receive it. And if you don't have it, you won't have any to receive it. So that's what he's talking about, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. If you don't have room, you can't receive it. But if you have room, you shall and you will receive the rain that bring forth the crops, so that the whole process, so that your livestock can eat from the grass and your crops can grow. So therefore you can continue to offer your livestock, your produce, and give your seed, all because of rain. And that's what he's talking about. And then let's talk about what this devourer is, because a lot of people, when they read this, or a lot of people, they want to say, oh, the devourer, he's talking about Satan. I'm going to rebuke that devourer, but we're going to see what the devourer is. Yeah, let's go to the locust.
I never took that as...
Yeah, but a lot of people do take the devourer because it says, be ye sober, be vigilant, for your adversary the devil seeking whom he may devour, because they hear it here. Yeah, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people do.
In a sense, he is a devourer in this particular...
Yeah, well, I know he is, but they try to tie what he is in one scripture to what he's not in another scripture. And that's where the error is. So the devourer, it's Hebrew 398 in your Strongs, and it means to eat, burn up, or consume. And let's go to Psalms 105.
My question, what did you look to see what the same word in the Greek mean?
No, because we're not dealing with the Greek.
I'm just saying that the word itself, we're not dealing with the person, but does it...
No, I didn't look for the Greek.
Now you're going to make me walk upstairs.
Why? We're not talking about Satan.
No, I'm just saying.
Oh, because you want to know?
Contrast, yeah. It's a contrast. Devour is a devourer.
Exactly.
But if a devourer...
But it doesn't, it says Satan.
Here is an animal, a pedestal. Here in Medicaid, Satan is a spirit that can get into a grasshopper or a locust.
He can get into yeah.
He can get right. So that's my only thing I was just asking. You know, is there any tie in with the word?
Well, when we read this, we're going to see how the devourer comes from God and not Satan. So in a way, the devourer works for God, and we're going to find this. Don't take my word for it. It's in the scripture. We can start at Psalms 105. We can start at the 26th verse.
20 cent verse?
Yeah, 20 cent. 2 hamburger gummies. Psalms 105. We could just read the 26, because it goes to the end, but I'm not going to read that far. And it says, he sent Moses his servant Aaron, whom he had chosen. They showed his signs among them and the wonders in the land of Ham. He sent darkness and made it dark, and they rebelled not against his word. He turned their waters into blood and slew their fish. All right. Their land brought forth frogs in abundance in the chambers of kings. He spake, and there came divers sorts of flies. He's talking about the 10 plagues. Now let's find where the devour word is. I knew I should have highlighted it. And he saw the fig trees, divers.
34?
Yeah, 34. He spake. 35. Yeah. We can read it 34. He spake, and the locusts came, and caterpillars, and that without number, and did eat up all the herbs in their land, and devoured the fruit of their ground. Fruit of the ground is found in Malachi just as well as Psalms 105.
Yeah, and your fruit shall not.
And the devourer shall not. I will rebuke the devourer for your sake. So who is the devourer? Locusts, caterpillars, or anybody that he will send.
Vermin.
Yeah, vermin, any type of insect that eats up the fruit of anyone's ground, maggots, termites, whoever. That's why he said when he will rebuke the devourer, he won't say, no, even though that's what your job is to do, I'm going to rebuke you so you won't do what I've created you to do. Yeah. So when he said, I'm going to rebuke the devourer for your sake, that he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground, that's his normal job, to destroy. So when he rebukes them, he's saying, don't do that, even though. And another example of rebuking is in the book of Jude, where Michael was, where it says like he durst not bring a relevant accusation, but he rebuked them or whatnot. So exactly. So when you rebuking somebody, you're stop telling them don't do what you normally do. Satan, his job is to destroy and to do all manner of wickedness. But when you rebuke him, you saying you're not going to do this on my part or on my end or the route that you want to take. I'm rebuking you for that, so you're going to go another route. It's the same thing that God is telling the priest, that if you bring the tithe, or the Levite, if you bring the tithe to the storehouse, and there's going to be meat in my house for the priest to eat. So after you do that, this is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to make sure you have enough rain so that you can regrow your crops, so that your livestock can be healthy, and so that you can give seed. And not only am I going to do that, I'm going to rebuke the devourer or the caterpillars and the all type of vermin or insects that would normally eat up them, so that they won't destroy the fruits of your ground. Because if they destroy the fruits of your ground, you can't bring it to the priest, and the priest can't eat. So it is a whole system of how it has to work. So, and all nations shall call you blessed, for you shall be a delightsome land. That land is talking your physical land. Your grass is always green. Your plants are always fervently growing and everything. It's talking physical, nothing spiritual. So that is the understanding of Malachi, the 3rd chapter, 6 to 12 verses, and how it physically applied to land and to things, not nothing spiritual as people try to read it in today's time. And again, we're commanded to obey 2 Corinthians, the 9th chapter, when it tells us how to give. Not from Malachi, because no one, first, the priest is gone. Let's say the priest wasn't gone. Who is agriculturally knowledgeable to grow your own crops? Who's growing crops these days? You could learn how, but that's not your job to be a farmer or whatnot. Even if it is, you're probably not farming your own land or whatnot. And the whole purpose of him telling to bring the tithe to the storehouse is because the priest's office. So if there's no priest's office, how can you bring your tithe to an office that is not held by a natural man when our high priest is in heaven? So since that is done away with, what's instituted, as Christ said in Luke chapter 6, give and it shall be given to you. Tied with giving from your heart. Don't give out of your need, because you need a blessing, so I'm going to give. A lot of that goes around too, like, oh, you need to give out your need. But the Bible said don't give out of necessity. If you need 500, you need to give 500. But if I needed 500, why don't I just keep my 500? Oh, well, if you keeping yours, you're not paying your tithe. So it's like if you I listen a lot, and it's a lot of contradictory statements. Like I said, when people read Malachi 3rd chapter, then when that's a commandment, a straight requirement, then they say, oh, but you won't be blessed if it's not from your heart. But if my heart is not to do that 10%, what am I to do now? I just stay home, watch gospel on TV or something. And like I said, it's equivalent to somebody saying you can wear any color shirt you want as long as it's black or as long as it's this specific color. It don't make sense. But because we have the understanding now of Malachi and who it was talking to and the context of with it, we should no longer say, oh, yeah, this is still in effect because our high priest is in heaven and he commanded us to give And when you give, don't make it to be seen of men. Matthew chapter 6, verses like 1 to 4, about your alms giving. He never said your tithes. He said, when you give alms, don't be like the Pharisees, but do it secretly. Because if you do it secretly, I'm going to reward you openly, taking away that tithe thing even more. And he said, again, give as it's purposed in your heart. If it's purposed in your heart to give $1, you give that $1 and you give it cheerfully. Because it wasn't about money, but because this is a total different day, and this doctrine was duplicated time after time and hyped up, even in a black church. It's like, I can't have you preach this, because if people are taught that they can't give tithes, they're not going to give no money, and the church is going to go down or whatnot. But if the church is truly founded on God, whether if they bring money in or not, it's still going to stand. And I also had that it was established under Moses in the Old Covenant, but for the church after him, for the first 700 years, people in the new church or whatnot, they wasn't paying tithes either. But the Emperor Charlemagne reestablished it in 777 AD, where the same doctrine is being preached of how we should give our 10% from servile work. He reestablished tithing in the church as a law. Like the first 700 years, nobody was giving tithes, whether if they was the true Jews or the people who are not or whatnot. And when it got promoted to like Europe and Asia, there wasn't no record of them giving tithes. They would give wages, like you was talking about. They would give wages, but they never gave what was considered that mandatory 10% until the Emperor Charlemagne reestablished it in 777. So 700 years, there was no evidence of tithes until he came in. The same doctrine he incorporated in 777 is the same one we follow today. So what's up with that? Huh?
In Malachi.
Yeah. I mean, he just said, well, yeah, tither's requirement. But, as you go on, people start to add more. Well, since it's a requirement, let me try to find scriptures that people don't have to question it with. Mm-hmm. And that's why we got the Malachi, and that's all we ever hear about tithes. So with that, I don't know if anybody have any questions or whatnot, but we broke down what the devourer is, what the windows of heaven are, and what the fruit of your field, cast your time before the field and everything. We have all that understanding. So does anybody have any questions?
So you think Jesus would be like totally upset if someone read that scripture on a Sunday, on a Saturday, or on a whatever daily time of worship? You think he'd be like, you crucify me all over again if that scripture was read?
Yes. He would be upset if the person have knowledge of what the scripture truly is and continue to read it.
So, in other words, if he going to be ticked off about reading it, then it'd be just best to rewrite the Bible and not put that in.
But here's my thing I always say, that you don't have to rewrite the whole Bible or do away with the whole Bible just because of somebody reading it wrong or without knowledge. Once you come into the knowledge of something, once you know to do better, you do better. It doesn't have nothing to do with the Bible is perfect and it's holy.
So just reading something.
No, if you're reading.
To read something
no, okay. So why would the person be reading it?
It's in the scriptures. Why read the scriptures?
No. Answer. No, no. It's not. We're not talking about anything. We're talking about tithes.
That's the whole thing. We pinpointing.
That's what
one thing in tithes.
That's what the lesson is about.
So basically, what we should do is just like get all Bibles and just cut that error.
No, you're taking it out of content. It's not an error.
So what the question was, is he going to be upset if it's read?
Of course he would be upset. If a person has knowledge of what tithes is.
When we read that scripture for, how long? 15 years of me being here. We read that scripture. We don't say that you're cursed because you don't. we read that scripture because it's in His Word. Just like with any other scripture in that book.
When do you read this scripture?
We read the scripture.
Do you read it anytime or just during offering?
During offering.
Why do you read it during offering? And why don't? The case
becomes,
is, why don't you read any other
becomes,
scripture during offering? Why just only this scripture during offering?
Because that is what has always been read.
Why?
Just because we read it doesn't mean that that's what we are saying.
All right.
If you don't do this, this is what's going to happen.
So my point exactly, just like you're saying, you're reading this for a specific reason. That's why we're talking about this for a specific reason.
Not for no guilt. It's not a guilt trip.
Well,
because if you read the scripture to people who come to church and they feel that, oh, well, you ain't got, and you make them feel guilty. A whole lot of that is made people feel guilty that you got to give.
Exactly.
Everybody don't read that scripture.
I understand that
for that purpose. So I don't care about nobody else on this planet Earth. I'm saying here, we read the scripture. Is he going to be mad because we read the scripture? Now, in other words, what you're probably saying, well, if you're going to read it on Sunday before offering, why not read it on Wednesday before Bible study?
But you're reading this scripture for a specific reason. It's just like if someone is coming to Christ and they need to know, what do I know to be saved? You wouldn't read the scripture. You read specific scriptures for specific things. Always. You don't read the scripture. I won't say most people will not read the scripture any other time than if they're not talking about tithes or offering, they're not going to read this scripture. That's why this scripture has always been read, whether if they was doing it with the knowledge of what true tithes are or without the knowledge of true tithes. When it comes tithes and offering, everybody knows what scripture is about to be read. Whether if your intention is to make somebody feel guilty or not, if that's not your intention, but if people still feel guilty, because if I